long, long ago, when the waters of Lake Missoula had receded and the land had opened up its treasures. The food sources of both salmon and bison were available. Such as our namesake, we're the Bitterroot people. 2 times a year, along with even before horse culture came along in the dog days. And by dogs, I mean wolf runts that were kicked out of their pack, that the native peoples, they would gather around and you know, because the runts need a pack, you know, so people would have these wolves before horse days. And the use of the buffalo in the plains goes back to those days, the dog days, and was further adopted into the plains. The more people and the more resources available when the horses did come. But the tradition goes back a very long time ago. And in the spring and in the fall and during the buffalo hunts, one of the ways that we would bring the whole village, you know, everybody, men, women, children, grandparents, because it takes a team to do just one buffalo. And that's just the processing of the meat, which would include the taking off of the meat off the bone, and then further processing the meat into dried goods and what's to be cooked right then, and a lot of cutting and stuff. And I like to focus on a time period before horses, and mainly in a uniquely Stone Age period, you could call it, where you're using a lot of the bison bone as your tools, and you're seeing a lot of flint. You're seeing a lot of just natural rock in nature, some of it being very workable, and you would make tools for processing out of that. But I think it's important to remember in this modern day, in this era, about the buffalo culture and I think the importance is of how it brings a whole family and a whole village, a whole tribe together. And it teaches the youth really how every part of the animal is usable for some reason. You have your meat and the food and that, but you also have a lot of the organs are used for. Some are medicines, some are for water. There's a bladder for water bags. There's different ways you can use even the gut, and of course the skin and the hide. Of course, you can turn that into leather or hair-on blanket. So it goes well beyond just a food source. I think it has a big impact on the overall lifestyle of the culture the bison do. And one of the most important, I would say, lessons about this is that every part of not only the bison is used, but it teaches how, like, say if you were to make a spear, and you took that spearhead and you fit it in your stick, and you know, you used it to procure more bison, or it was your defense weapon, and eventually that bone, there's a way you process the bone where you can harden it with fire, and you can add your own greases to it. So once it's hardened and it has the grease in there, you can make different implements, scraping tools and stuff. I like to tell the story of how your spear becomes a scraping tool, and from your scraping tool that becomes a knife. From your knife it becomes two smaller knives and an awl, you know. And from an awl it turns into a couple needles, and from needles it turns to dirt, and it becomes so it really shows front to back how everything is used, and any waste becomes dirt. Even the hide scrapings, the membrane on the inside, and any leftovers of that, you can make hide glue. And all of the bones are very usable because it's such a heavy animal that they're real dense bones. And the sinew is, you can get, and we use sinew for thread and string, and you can re-wet it and string it together, and it's a really good tool for everything, and most importantly for sewing clothes and just your day-to-day stuff. So even the little sinews of in between the muscles are usable in the bison.
And you're like, oh no, and then you got this big old chip or something. So a lot of times we'll just tap, tap, tap with the rock, and it'll just do the same job a little slower and less cuts and things when I use rocks.
And with our culture's way, where we can harvest bison and then come back into the mountainous areas where there's trout, and even far as to where there are salmon, and a lot of basket weaving and you know, different plants and different kind of berries and everything in the mountainous regions. So I think it's important to note that it not only shows a culture that has the plains and what we understand as plains culture with the bison and the counting coup and that kind of thing, but we also speared fish, and hunted smaller game a lot and subsisted on that. Had a salmon season, wove basketry. Wrap it. And then when this dries, this rawhide dries, it'll dry and tighten as it dries. So you got double whammy going on, the glue. Whereas more plains, you might see more parfleche bags. So we were a culture that did both. And I think that art in of itself will teach respect of the land. It teaches you about your mountainous areas and the lakes and its animals. It teaches you respect for all that, and respect for its plants and waterways, even its rocks, you know. And it teaches you about the Great Plains, and it teaches you how everything is used in the buffalo culture. And then when you bring that and cross over into the plateau culture, you can see there that just a cedar tree, there's uses for every part of the tree, and it crosses over into other game and I think your whole lifestyle. And so what I'm trying to do here is teach youth, maybe to make it seem cool enough as an art that it can carry on for future generations, so that the culture and isn't lost through the arts. And as I've said, the art teaches you the respect for the land and the water and the animals. So it's just a matter of getting the art seen and recognized, and the processes of doing it. And with this student, I did mostly just with no metal tools. And once it caught on, and other youth like at the camp were participating with us, I did allow them to use some metal files and things for the sake of time. But the particular student, I made him stick, and so did I. We both used all stone tools and all the primitive glues, all of it. So we stayed, even the cutting of the hide we did with flint. And I think maybe the soaking of the hide was in a baggie or whatever, because you have to rehydrate it in water. But yeah, so he was a really good student and a great participant in that. He I think learned a lot more than he knows. This is really an opportunity for all of us. So each one, yeah, totally. Each one is different, so we're gonna have to design it what the bone tells you to do. Geez, yours is ready to sharpen. So let's just clean this stuff up with the smooth side, and then maybe rough up the inner side with the, just like the tip or something. See that stuff coming up. Goop out of there. And don't sharpen it yet, because then you won't be able to hold it like that. And then the tip is pretty much there. I want to angle it more, but it's getting too sharp. I'll wait till it's done. Yeah, here you can use this one. Same dip, the smooth side. You can even, with this one, you can use your whole hand. And it's more important than just the artist, and it's more important than even just the art. I think the art is a conduit to pass on the culture, and that the culture teaches respect for the land and animals and water, which I think is pretty usable nowadays, especially.